the Maul versus Anakin duel that never happened. So this is the most tragic subject we've talked about in my channel. But Luke versus Maul, this has the potential not only to happen, but to be, the greatest duel to have ever been seen in Star Wars. But how, you may ask? Well, we have Ahsoka Season 2 and the Mandalorian movie, but before we jump ship and go through all that I want to talk through, let's just dial it back. Let's just talk about concrete stuff that support the idea of actually this happening. Let's just not make this a fan wet dream or something of that sort. I want us to be realistic when we talk about this stuff. I didn't get this from any source. Nobody talks in my ear. I am just a diehard Star Wars fan who thinks realistically. And as backing for my dreams, not wet dreams, mind you, but dreams nonetheless, I kind of have some concrete steps that we should take to actually come to a conclusion. Why Luke versus Maul could and should happen. The first thing is, of course, that George Lucas's original plan for his sequels before he sold to Disney was, as we all know by now, Maul was going to be the main villain in those 3 movies that George Lucas envisioned, and Darth Talon was going to be his apprentice or something of that sort. So it was going to be Darth Maul and Darth Talon. Alas, it never came to be, and I don't know what to say to that. Many people have kind of jumped the gun in my opinion and said that it's a tragedy. I don't know if it's a tragedy. It would be great to see Maul as the villain. Anything other than what we got in the sequels with Snoke and that whole debacle. Maul as a villain would be great in that trilogy, and he did establish himself as a crime syndicate lord. What George Lucas also envisioned with those kids and teenagers focused on blah blah blah, I don't think it would have worked quite as well. But it's still, I think Maul as a villain had the potential to save that sequel trilogy too. So since George Lucas had this plan of having Maul as a villain in the next chapter of Star Wars, this leads me to believe that Dave Filoni, the guy who not only came through George Lucas, became the master now of Star Wars, and always has tried to respect the vision of George Lucas, I have no doubts that it has crossed his mind for the next villain of the next phase of Star Wars to be Darth Maul. Unfortunately, Darth Maul is dead, as we know, but there are ways around it. As George Lucas quite eloquently put it in Star Wars, there's always nobody's really ever dead. Let's talk realistically. Thrawn has an undead army on Dathomir together with the witches. They have this Frankenstein army that I don't know, I don't understand really. They have zombies, which will get plowed through by every Jedi that comes in contact with them. They will slice through them like in Ahsoka Season 1. We clearly saw that. So it's not going to be interesting. You have to think in movie terms. I mean, it's not going to be effective to throw a zombie army at Luke, Ezra, and Ahsoka, because we saw that in Ahsoka Season 1. It didn't work. You have the Night Witches, who have some potential, I guess. But what's clearly missing from Thrawn's army? Duelists, lightsaber fighters, darksiders, people who can clearly go up against Luke, a Grand Jedi Master at this point, against Ahsoka, and against Ezra. This is what, in the end, Thrawn lacks. We've talked about the Avengers Star Wars edition in a previous video. So in Avengers, Thanos was this great, hulking, powerful being, and Thrawn is not. Thrawn has his mind to work against his enemies, and that's great at some points, but at some points it's not. And you can imagine when he finds out that Luke is the son of Anakin Skywalker, he is just gonna poop his pants right there. So this leads me to believe that if there's a Thrawn undead army that is not being controlled by anyone, and it's just fodder for Jedi to slice through, he needs lightsaber duelists. And since they're on Dathomir, and since he has Night Witches by his side, Thrawn will, of course, decide to have one of the greatest duelists of all time, Darth Maul. Darth Maul was great. He killed a Jedi Master on his first try with Qui-Gon Jinn. The guy is great, and you would do anything to clone him, bring him back, and even infuse him with some magic. Perhaps, let's say his memory is kind of faulty. The clone is not all there, but he is aggressive and he can fight. That's all that matters. If you give this clone Maul a lightsaber, he'll just go banana. You can have, as I said, we talked about also Savage Opress. To see Savage Opress in live action would be beautiful, and he would serve alongside Maul. Both of them would be leaders of this undead army on Dathomir. Poetic, perfect. I think it fits perfectly. This is why I said in the beginning, it is a dream, but there's concrete steps I think Dave Filoni could take to bring this dream to real life. Now, two things I want to say to you fans. There's a tragedy in Star Wars that I will never forget, and I will talk about it until the day I die. The biggest tragedy in Star Wars is that Anakin Skywalker never fought Darth Maul. Darth Maul and Anakin Skywalker have never had a lightsaber duel, although there were indications in many moments where, Anakin would have defeated Maul. Sure. The next tragedy is, of course, that Darth Vader never fought Darth Maul. Again, there were indications, especially in Star Wars Rebels, where visibly Maul is afraid that Darth Vader is coming to Malachor, to the Sith Temple. Nonetheless, even though we might know the result, it doesn't excuse the fact that we've never seen them duel. As a fan, I would love to see that. It would be an epic moment. And the fact that not only Anakin but Luke and a Skywalker has never fought Darth Maul. This, I think, it's a tragedy, and it's a tragedy that can be reversed in this new iteration of whatever Ahsoka Season 2 or Mando movie. In this next phase, you can have a Maul clone fight Luke, Prime versus Prime. It would serve all the fans, and it would be an epic moment. There's not really much to say in this matter. It would just be perfect Star Wars. We've seen hints in Legends also. We've seen Luke kind of fight Maul. There's a comic story where Luke travels to a planet for a negotiation, and he runs into a sort of a ghost of Maul or something of that sort. And of course the famous Darth Vader fighting a Maul doppelganger comic where Darth Vader defeats him. There's been these instances, these hints in Legends, but canon, even after 10 years, it has these huge gaps that I just can't forgive. And you can never convince me that Anakin versus Maul never happening is not a Star Wars tragedy. It is. You can point to Ahsoka versus Maul on Mandalore. That's great, but I just don't count it. I don't care that Ahsoka kind of defeated Maul. Everybody wants to see Maul versus Anakin, and if that's never gonna happen, then at least we should get Luke versus Maul. Think about it. Think about those scenes where you have now officially in canon a Qui-Gon ghost. By this point, you have an Obi-Wan ghost. You have a Yoda ghost. All these ghosts could come back in this series or in that movie to kind of give hints to Luke, aid him in his journey. Perhaps even we can see Qui-Gon or Obi-Wan Force Ghost haunting this Maul clone and him regaining his memory of what he has done to these Jedi. I don't know, weird scenes, but great scenes as well. Magic with a CK, as it is in Star Wars, has definitely been brought back through the Night Witches that are accompanying Thrawn now on Dathomir. This is why they were turned there, because there's such a dark history and a dark presence on that planet that Thrawn wants to exploit that through the Night Witches and actually revive the magic that Palpatine, perhaps Thrawn thinks that Palpatine did not value it enough, and Thrawn will do his best to bring it back. And they would show Thrawn what is actually waiting for him, because I don't think he has the slightest idea. Imagine how panicked Thrawn was when he learned that Ahsoka was the former apprentice of Anakin Skywalker. There's so much to talk about this, but I don't want to ramble on. Thank you guys so much for listening, and don't forget to leave your thoughts down below, because I want to read them. I want to see if I'm crazy. If you think I'm crazy, that is totally fine. I completely agree with you. I am crazy, and please be crazy with me. Talk to me down below in the comments.